Hey guys, Mark from Soul Adventure. I wanted to talk for a few minutes today about Hinge, or what a lot of people call back tension type releases. Um, I, like probably many of you, am just a bow hunter, and the Hinge or the back tension type release has traditionally been used most by target archers. And although I still don't hunt with the Hinge release, there has been no other thing that's helped my shooting more than practicing with a Hinge or a back tension type release. So I was terrified. I've heard the horror stories of people punching themselves and everything else with these types of releases. Um, I was hesitant to try one. When I got one, I didn't really even fully understand what I was getting or how it worked or anything like that. So just want to take a couple minutes today to talk about very basic, what is a Hinge release, how does it work, what are some of the ways that you can use one, things like that. So let's jump in and take a look at the mechanism and how a Hinge release works. Alright, so what I have here is a Hinge release, back tension type release. This one happens to be from Scott Archery. It is called their Longhorn Hunter. One interesting thing about this release is that it comes with a traditional wrist strap that you can hook on. So if you're hunting, you can wear a wrist strap and kind of let it hang. Anyway, what I want to talk about is the mechanism and how a Hinge release works. So it's all about a hinge or a pivot. So there's no trigger, there's no real spring action, anything like that. It's just this pivoting movement that causes the release to either hold tension, like right now, holding tension, or to fire. And so, again, it's all, I like to think of it as a pivot, not necessarily a hinge, but as a pivot. And what happens is this piece here, with the flat top and then the circle underneath, most guys call that the moon, and that's adjustable. So inside of here, I could take an Allen wrench up in there and loosen, and I could adjust the angle of this moon. So is this moon tilted this way, that way, all kinds of things. And now here's my hook for my D-loop, and inside of that is a sear. And so it's basically, how does this sear pivot with the hinge? And when it reaches the flat spot of the moon, it fires. So let's look at this. I'm pulling with all the tension in the world right now. I can shake, I can twist, I can do anything, and this isn't going to fire. However, if I were to pivot this to this direction, it fires. So this sear has passed over the moon, and there's no physical contact, and so it fires. So it's kind of hard to do slow, and I'm left-handed, so if you're wondering why things look backwards, I'm left-handed. But right now, all the tension in the world, and I'm slowly moving, it's slowly pivoting, Did you hear that? There was a click. Not all hinge releases or back tension releases have a click. This one does. When you hear that click, that means it's super close to going off. Be ready for it to fire. If I continue there it goes. Slowly rotate, slowly move. Click. Fire. So what does this look like when we shoot? Let's take a jump back and let's look at that. Alright, so once again, I mentioned when I started shooting a hinge, I was hesitant. I built this. I highly recommend that if you're new to shooting a hinge or a back tension release, you absolutely, positively do not try to figure it out by shooting a bow, because you probably will hurt yourself. So this is just a little training aid that I put together. I took it was like a rake or something that had broke, cut the wood off, drilled a hole through. This blue is nothing more than like a bungee cord thing that I put it through the holes, tied it, and then tied a D-loop on. So what this allows me to do is just basically practice. I have my D-loop, I can draw and fire. That's the best way to learn how to shoot a hinge release or back tension release, and really the best way to shoot any new release. If any release is new to you, I don't care if it's a trigger and you've been shooting a trigger, whatever, it's always a good idea to get comfortable and familiar with how the release works before you actually begin to shoot with that release. So I just wanted again to show you what this looks like as I shoot. So again, we talked about the pivot. I want to keep, as I draw, I want to keep this angle with the hinge. I don't want to get up here because that's when it fires. I want to keep this angle, and when I have that angle, it can't fire. If I were to get up here towards this direction, that's when it's going to fire. So a key is to use a thumb peg. This thumb peg is not a thumb trigger on a thumb trigger release. It's just a peg to keep you in proper form and to keep the proper angle. This is the angle I want to keep. So I'm going to pull back, keeping that angle. Keeping that angle, nothing can happen. It's not going to fire. I can do whatever. So what this looks like for me is, again, keeping that angle, using the thumb peg, pulling back, and then I get to anchor. And I still have that same angle, still have that tension. I let go of my thumb peg, nothing magical happens there. And then really the whole goal of a thumb or a hinge is to let the release surprise you. You don't want to fire this release, you just want to execute a shot. You want to be able to be focused on aiming and just kind of naturally, subconsciously build up pressure, and the release should surprise you when it goes off. So for me, I anchor, I'm contracting the muscles in my back. I just hit the click, and at the same time as I'm contracting the muscles in my back, I'm relaxing my release hand. So it's going to be hard to see on video. There's not a lot of movement there. But when I'm pulling, pushing forward with my bow, pulling back, contracting the muscles in my back, I begin to relax my release hand. When I do, you can see it rotates. So I'll try to over exaggerate it, but basically I have my good angle to where it's not going to fire. Have my good angle, I'm at anchor, right? There's tension, of course. I'm holding the weight of the bow, contracting my muscles, and I'm going to over exaggerate, but I'm going to rotate in this direction. However, I'm not intentionally rotating. I don't want to focus on rotating. The rotating is just a natural sequence of events as I'm at tension, and just loosen my hand. As I relax my hand and hold the tension with my back muscles, this release is going to rotate and fire. So once again, using the training tool, going to keep the good angle, pull back, find a comfortable anchor. I'm pulling, contracting, pushing the bow forward. And you can see, even then, I dropped my training tool. Once again, the purpose is to be surprised by the shot. A good point, shoot with a sling. If you're used to hunting and don't use a sling and you use a trigger release, fine. But that's because you're catching the bow as you fire it. I, all the time, even with training with that aid, drop that. It flies out of my hand because that shot surprises me. I don't know when it's going off, so I don't catch my bow, which is a good thing. A surprise shot, a clean release is exactly what you want. It's what you're going to get with a hinge release when you do it properly. Again, don't be afraid of them. Just understand how they work, understand the angles, the pivot, the movement, and just begin to train with one. It is incredible for the mental game. So much of archery is mental. It's going to defeat trigger panic for you if you have it at any level. This is a great training aid. Again, the Scott, the Longhorn Hunter, it's been great for me. Scott makes several models, but don't be afraid to try one. Get out there, shoot with it. Off season, all through the season, great training aid, and check it out. Alright, so before we go, I thought it would be helpful to actually shoot one with a bow as opposed to my little training device. So once again, it's important to keep the angles proper. Gonna draw back, anchor, and what you'll notice is my shot, now I'm talking, but my shot is still gonna be a lot longer than normal because it's all a matter of settling in and relaxing. You can see too that my bow went forward and my release hand went back. That pressure breaks, shot's clean, I'm surprised by when it fires off, and it's exactly what you want. Is the bow goes forward, release hand goes back, surprise release, and good shot.